Good day, judges. Welcome to another segment of Juan Arliwag Memorial High School Senior High School Math TV. Last time, we were able to discuss different types of conic sections. We have the circle, the parabola, and the ellipse. So those are the first three types of conic sections. For the circle, we have the formula x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared if the center is located at the origin. If the center is located at HK, the formula will be x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared is equal to r squared. For the parabola, we have x squared is equal to 4cy and y squared is equal to 4cx. And for the ellipse, we have x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared. And for the last type of conic section, it is the hyperbola. And we have here two types of the hyperbola, the transverse axis x and the transverse axis y. For an ellipse, we call this as the major axis. For the hyperbola, we call this as the transverse axis. So what is the formula if the center is located at the origin or point 0, 0? That is x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared is equal to 1. Remember that the sign between x squared and y squared should be negative. And for the transverse axis y, we'll now be having y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared is equal to 1. So, for the center located at HK, our formula or our equation for the transverse axis x would be x minus h quantity squared over a squared minus y minus k quantity squared over b squared is equal to 1. And for the next one, we'll now be having if the center is located at HK, so the equation will be y minus k quantity squared over a squared minus x minus h quantity squared over b squared is equal to 1. So these are the standard equation of the hyperbola if the transverse axis is the x-axis and if the transverse axis is the y-axis. We have again three variables. Just like an ellipse, we have a squared, b squared, and c squared. And for the hyperbola, the largest is c squared. Therefore, the formula that we'll be using is c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. Always remember that c is the largest among the three quantity. So, we'll now be talking about the asymptotes. If we have transverse axis x and the center is located at the origin, the asymptotes would be y is equal to plus minus b over a times x. So this will be the equation of the asymptotes because asymptotes are also lines. So those will be the equation of the asymptotes. And for the transverse axis y is equal to plus minus a over bx. Since we have transverse axis y, it becomes y is equal to plus minus a over bx. So, this is how we obtained the equation of the asymptotes. And it becomes plus minus a over bx. And that is the equation of the asymptotes for transverse axis y. Remember that for transverse axis x, it's just that we have y is equal to plus minus b over ax. A and b are the coordinate of the a squared and b squared. So you'll just get the square root of a squared and b squared in order for you to get the values of b and a. Okay, what if the center is now located at HK? What will be the equation of the asymptotes? For the equation of the asymptotes, if we have x minus h quantity squared is equal to a squared, we just equate this to y minus k quantity squared over b squared. Get the square root of both sides, therefore, we'll be having x minus h over plus minus a is equal to y minus k over plus minus b. Since we need to get y, so we need to rewrite the equation as y minus k is equal to multiply it plus minus b to the other side, that is plus minus b over a times x minus h. And then we just need y in the right side, in the left side I mean, that becomes plus minus b over a times the quantity x minus h plus k. So this becomes the equation of the asymptotes if the transverse axis is horizontal. And for the equation of the asymptotes for the transverse axis vertical, therefore we will now be having okay, let's just erase this part. Okay, therefore, we will now be having y minus k quantity squared over a squared is equal to x minus h quantity squared over b squared. Okay, getting the square root of both sides. Therefore, this becomes y minus k over plus minus a is equal to x minus h over plus minus b. Simplifying, we'll be having y minus k is equal to plus minus a over b times the quantity x minus h. Y is now equal to plus minus a over b times x minus h plus k. Therefore, this is now the equation of the asymptotes if the transverse axis is the y-axis. Remember that based on the asymptotes, if the center is located at the origin, we just added x minus h and then add plus k, because since the center is now located at hk. I hope this is clear. For the graph of transverse axis horizontal or transverse axis x, therefore, this is the graph with the center located at the origin or the point 0, 0. So if this is the case, that is the center located at the origin. And we have here 2 points that will be V1 and V2. And those are the vertices from the center going to V2, and from the center going to V1, that distance is A. We also have F1 and F2, the foci of the hyperbola. So from the center going to F1 or F2, that distance would be C. So based on the graph, we could say that C is the largest among the three quantity. So from the variables A, B, and C, C will always be the largest. So since we have transverse axis horizontal, therefore the major axis is the horizontal axis. And we will now be having another 2 points for the conjugate axis. When we say conjugate axis, this will be the minor axis of the hyperbola. And I'll be calling that as W1 and W2. And from the center going to any points of W1 and W2, that would be B. And I am graphing W1 and W2 so that it will be very easy for me to graph the asymptotes. And we call this rectangle as the auxiliary rectangle because the diagonals of the auxiliary rectangle will serve as the asymptotes of the hyperbola. So the auxiliary rectangle contains the sides 2A and 2B, and that 2A is the length of the vertices, and that 2B is the length of the co-vertices. And this is now the asymptotes. Again, the asymptotes or the diagonals of the rectangle will serve as the asymptotes of the hyperbola. And remember that the graph of the hyperbola will never meet the asymptotes. It will get closer and closer to the asymptotes, but they will never meet at any point. And the equation of the asymptote would be y is equal to plus minus b over ax if the transverse axis is horizontal. So this is now the graph of the hyperbola with transverse axis located at the horizontal axis. Based on the graph, we could see that the hyperbola will get closer and closer to the asymptotes, but they will never meet at any point. So this is the graph. So we have here the foci, the vertices, the co-vertices or the conjugate axis. Remember that we could see foci and vertices, and the transverse axis and the co-vertices and the conjugate axis. In this case, the transverse axis is horizontal and the conjugate axis is the vertical axis. And the center is located at the origin. So this will be the graph of the hyperbola given its asymptotes and the sides of the auxiliary rectangle. Just like the ellipse, we'll be dealing with A, B, and C as its variables. Okay, so let's now have another example, or our example number 1. Our example with center located at the origin. So let's have first an example. Remember that whichever is positive between x squared and y squared, that will always serve as the transverse axis. Okay? And the negative one will serve as our conjugate axis. So our first example would be x squared over 9 minus y squared over 7 is equal to 1. So in this case, since x squared over 9 is positive, therefore, we will be saying that this is transverse axis x, or the transverse axis is horizontal since x squared over 9 is positive. So do not be confused. Always remember that if whichever is positive between x squared and y squared, that will always serve as the transverse axis or our major axis. Okay, and our conjugate axis now will be the y-axis. So, if this is the given, therefore the center is
now located at point 0, 0, which is at the origin, and our a squared is 9, therefore a is equal to plus minus 3. Our b squared is equal to 7, therefore our b is square root of 7. And that square root of 7 is plus minus 2.65. So using c squared, the formula for c squared, since c is the largest among the three variables, therefore we'll be having 9 plus 7. 9 plus 7 is 16. Square root of 16, that is plus minus 4. So we now have the three variables. These are the three important variables in order for us to graph the hyperbola. We have A, B, and C. And since this is transverse axis horizontal, we're now ready to solve for the coordinates of the foci, coordinates of the vertices, and coordinates of the co vertices. So we could say that we could find C in the x-axis and we could find B in the y-axis. Therefore, if we have V1, all we have to change is the variable x, or the coordinate x of the center. So we will add and we will subtract 3 in the coordinate of the x-axis of the center. So that will be 0, plus minus a, 0. Therefore, that is 0 plus minus 3, 0. So V1 is located at 0 plus 3, 0. The coordinates would be 3 and 0. And for V2, that would be 0 minus 3, 0. And we'll be having negative 3, 0. And for the foci, so again, we'll be changing the x-coordinate of the center. We'll be adding and subtracting c. So the formula is 0 plus minus c, 0. And that will be 0 plus minus 4, 0. F1 is 0 plus 4, 0. That becomes 4, 0. For our F2, that is 0 minus 4, 0. And that is negative 4, 0. And for the co-vertices, or the transverse axis, or the minor axis, okay, that is for W1 and W2. So let us first graph this one. The center is located at the origin. And we now have the points of the vertices and the foci. Okay, for the vertices, we have 3 and 0, that is V1, and V2 is negative 3, 0. For the foci, that is 4, 0, and negative 4, 0. This is F1, located at 4, 0. And we have here F2, located at negative 4, 0. So since this is transverse axis x, we could say that the vertices and the foci lie on the x-axis. And for W1 and W2, since this will be the transverse axis, we'll be changing the y-coordinate of the center. And that will be 0, 0 plus minus 2.65. W1 is 0 plus 2.65. That is 2.65. For W2, that is 0. 0 minus 2.65. Therefore, that is 0. Negative 2.65 rather. That is negative 2.65. So let us now try to graph. We have 2.65 here. That is W1, 0, 2.65. We also have W2. For W2, that is 0. This is W2 located at 0, negative 2.65. So we now have the foci, the vertices, the co-vertices. We have their coordinates, and we're now ready to get the asymptotes. Since this is transverse axis horizontal, the asymptotes, or the equation of the asymptotes would be y is equal to plus minus b over a, or b is square root of 7 over a, which is 3x. Remember that if we are using the equation of the asymptotes, we will not be using its decimal form. What we will be using is the one that we got as b. Okay. So we're now ready to graph the auxiliary rectangle. We'll be graphing the auxiliary rectangle so that it will be easy for us to graph the asymptotes, because the diagonals of the auxiliary rectangle will serve as the asymptotes of our hyperbola. Okay, so this will be the asymptotes of our hyperbola. And that is the graph of our hyperbola. This is the graph of our hyperbola. And the equation of the hyperbola with this graph is x squared over 9 minus y squared over 7 is equal to 1. So if you're asked to determine the area of the auxiliary rectangle, that is just 2 times 3 by 2 square root of 7. Therefore, that is 6 times 2 square root of 7. That would be the sides of the auxiliary rectangle. Moving on with our second example. So we'll now be having a different given from what we had for the first one. For the first one, we have the transverse axis x. And for the second one, let's have another given. And the given is y squared over 16 minus x squared over 9 is equal to 1. So based on this given, let us first inspect and analyze. Since what we have y squared over 16 minus x squared over 9, Therefore, which is positive? The y squared or the x squared? The first thing that you need to do in order for you to know the transverse axis and the conjugate axis is for you to find out which among the variables y squared or x squared is positive. In this case, based on the given, therefore, the transverse axis now is y since we have y squared over 16 and that is positive. Transverse axis y, we call that tie. Okay? Or the major axis is the vertical axis. Okay, so remember that there is no h and k, and if there is no h and k, the center is located at the origin with point 0, 0. And a squared now will be the positive one, and that is with y squared. Therefore, a squared is 16, a is equal to plus minus 4, b squared is 9, therefore b is equal to plus minus 3. And since c squared is the largest, that is the sum of a squared and b squared, that is 16 plus 9, will be having 25 as c squared, and the square root of 25 is plus minus 5. Okay, these are the three important variables a, b, and c. We have a plus minus 4, b plus minus 3, and c plus minus 5. Okay, since this is transverse axis y, in order for us to solve for the vertices, the foci, therefore, we'll be changing the y coordinate of the center. But now let us first get the equation of the asymptotes. The equation of the asymptotes is y is equal to plus minus a over bx. Therefore, that is y is equal to plus minus 4 over 3x. Since, again, this is transverse axis y, we will know that the foci and the vertices will lie on the y-axis. Therefore, the vertices would be 0, 0 plus minus a. V1 is located at 0, 0 plus 4, and that is 0, 4. And V2 is located at 0, 0 minus 4, and that is 0, negative 4. And for the foci, again, since this will also lie on the y-axis, the foci is 0, 0 plus minus c. Therefore, F1 is 0, 0 plus 5, that is 0, 5. F2 is 0, 0 minus 5, that becomes 0, negative 5. And for the co vertices, or we call that the transverse axis or the minor axis, since it will lie on the x-axis, we will be changing the x-coordinate of the center, and that is 0 plus minus b, 0. W1 is 0 plus 3, 0. That is 3, 0. W2 is 0 minus 3, 0. That is negative 3, 0. Let us now try to graph these important points: the vertices, the foci, the co-vertices as the transverse axis, so that we will be able to graph the hyperbola using the auxiliary rectangle. Again, I am only graphing W, which is the transverse axis or the minor axis or the co-vertices, because that will serve as the endpoints of the auxiliary rectangle for the conjugate axis. Some of the books will not tell you to graph anymore W or the co-vertices, because we're only asked to graph V1, V2, F1, F2, and the center. So we now have here V1 and V2. V1 is located at 0, 4. V2 is located at 0, negative 4. F1 is located at 0, 5, and F2 is located at negative 5. And since this is transverse axis Y, therefore we could find F1, V1, F2, V2, and the Y-axis. So for the co-vertices, we have W1 and W2 located at 3, 0, and negative 3, 0. So we're now ready to graph the auxiliary rectangle. For the auxiliary rectangle, this will be the graph, and this will serve as the pattern for our asymptotes. So we will be using the diagonals of the auxiliary rectangle because those diagonals will serve as the asymptotes of our hyperbola. Okay? And if you're given the equation of the asymptotes, remember that their intersection is just what we call as the center. Since our hyperbola is opening upward and downward, this will be the graph of the hyperbola because we are given transverse axis vertical. When we say transverse axis vertical, our hyperbola will open up and down. Unlike for the parabola that we will only choose if it opens up or if it opens down. For the hyperbola, it is a set of up and down and a set of to the left and to the right. What if we're now given an example wherein the center is not anymore located at the origin, and we are given another equation and we need to complete the square. So our given is 9x squared minus 4y squared minus 90x minus 32y is equal to negative 305. So remember, if this is the given, just like the ellipse, all we have to do is to gather all x squared, x to the left side, and after that, we need to gather all y squared and y, and on the right side, we'll be having all the constant. So we have 9x squared minus 90x minus 4y squared minus 32y is equal to negative 305. Remember that there should be no numerical coefficients for both x squared and y squared, and that we need to factor out their numerical coefficients. And in this case, we have 9x squared, therefore we need to factor out 9 so that it becomes x squared minus 10x plus the one that we need to complete, that is 25. And for the y squared, all we have to do is to factor out negative 4 since that is the numerical coefficient of y squared. So factor out negative 4, not factor out positive 4. It should be negative 4 times y squared. It becomes plus because that is negative 32. And negative 32 divided by negative 4 is positive. Okay? And that is positive 8y. That is positive 8y plus the one that we need to complete, that is 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. So if we add now to the right side, we have negative 305 plus 25 times 9 plus 16 times negative 4. Do not forget the negative 4. Therefore, we'll be having 9 times x minus 5 quantity squared minus 4 times y plus 4 quantity squared is now equal to the right side, okay? And that becomes 25 times 9 is 225. That is positive 225. 16 times negative 4 is negative 64. So the right side would be negative 305 plus 225 minus 64 will give us an answer of negative 144. And since the equation of the hyperbola, the right side of the equation of the hyperbola should always be positive 1. And in order for the right side to become positive 1, we need to divide both sides by negative 144. So that should be 9 times x minus 5 quantity squared over negative 144 minus 4 times y plus 4 quantity squared over negative 144 is now equal to positive 1. So we'll be having negative 144 divided by 9. That is x minus 5 quantity squared over 16. But that becomes now negative. And for the next one, negative 4 times y plus 4 quantity squared over negative 144, it becomes positive. So that is y plus 4 quantity squared over 36 is now equal to 1. So we just need to interchange the positions of y squared and x squared, so that it becomes y plus 4 quantity squared over 36 minus, because this is hyperbola, x minus 5 quantity squared over 16 is equal to 1. Therefore, this is very evident that y is positive. Therefore, we could say that we will be using transverse axis y or transverse axis vertical. So this is how we solve for the standard form of the hyperbola. Again, this is the standard form of the hyperbola. And the center is located at positive 5 and negative 4. Do not be confused. Even though we have the first one as y plus 4, we'll not be using that as the x coordinate. Therefore, we'll be using that as the y coordinate, and that is k. So the center is located at 5, negative 4. So for A and C should be in the y-axis. Therefore, we'll be changing the y-coordinate of the center if we'll be getting the vertices and the foci. And we'll be having the vertices as and the foci in the y-axis. Again, okay, let us try to solve first a squared, b squared, and c squared. A squared is equal to 36, therefore a is plus minus 6. B squared is equal to 16, therefore b is equal to plus minus 4. C squared is equal to the sum of a squared and b squared, and that is 52. And approximately, we have square root of 52 as c, therefore square root of 52, the approximation is plus minus 7.1 because 7.21, because always remember that c is the largest among the three values. Okay, so I guess we're now ready to solve for the coordinates of the vertices, the foci, and the co vertices. Remember that the transverse axis is located in the y-axis. Therefore, the conjugate axis is located in the x-axis, not just x-axis, but parallel to the x-axis. Okay. So this becomes V is 5 negative 4 plus 6 and 5 negative 4 minus 6. Therefore, V1 is 5, 2 and V2 is 5 negative 10. For the foci, that should be 5, -4, plus minus c, which is plus minus 7.21. So we'll be having F1, that is 5, -3.21, and F2 is 5, -11.21. So we now have here the points of the vertices and the foci. Vertices located at 5, 2, 5, -10. Foci located at 5, 3.21, and 5, -11.21. So let's now try to solve for the co-vertices. Since x is the transverse axis, all we have to do is to change the x-coordinate of the center. Therefore, that is 5 plus minus b, and b is 4. We have 5 plus minus 4, and our k is -4. So W1 will be having 5 plus 4, -4. W2 is 5 minus 4, -4. W1 is 9, -4. W2 is 1, -4. So we now have all the coordinates of the important variables. So we have V, F, and W. So if this is the case, we're now ready to graph these points in order for us to solve for the auxiliary rectangle, because again, the diagonals of the auxiliary rectangle will serve as the asymptotes of our hyperbola. Okay, let us first try to solve for the equation of the asymptote. Since the center is not anymore located at the origin, this is the formula or the equation of the asymptotes. Therefore, that is y plus minus a over b times the quantity x minus h plus k. We'll be having y is equal to plus minus 6 over 4 times x minus 5 plus 4. This will be the equation of the asymptote. Okay, that is y plus minus 3 over 2 times x minus 5 plus 4. Or I should say, that becomes now -4 since k is -4. Again, that is minus 4. Therefore, y is equal to plus minus 3 over 2 times the quantity x minus 5 minus 4. Since k is -4. Let's now have here the auxiliary rectangle 2a by 2b. Therefore, that is 2 times 6 times 2 times 4. That is 12 by 8. Therefore, the auxiliary rectangle now is 12 by 8. Okay, so let's now try to... Let's continue our discussion. What if we're now given different conditions and we're asked to determine the standard equation of the parabola? For this example, we are given the location of the center at 2, 0, one endpoint of the foci located at negative 5, 0, and one endpoint of the vertices is given as 5, 0. And we're asked to determine the standard equation of the hyperbola. Okay, if this is the case, let's say we have f1 and v1. All we have to do is to graph or plot the points first. So in plotting, the center is 2, 0. So this is the center. One endpoint of the foci is given. That is negative 5, 0. So that is f1. Let's say negative 5, 0. v1 is 5, 0. So 1, 5, 0. So this is v1. So 5, 0. So let us analyze the graph. Remember that from the center going to endpoints of the vertices, that is given as A. Okay, and that A is equal to 3. So let's write here A is equal to 3, therefore A squared is equal to 9. And from the center going to one point of the foci, that is C. Therefore, let us count, and the value of C would be 7. Therefore, C is equal to 7. C squared is equal to 49. Okay? Based on this graph, we could say that our hyperbola is horizontal since the foci, the endpoints of the foci, the center, and the vertices are located on the x-axis. Let's try to solve for b squared. B squared is equal to C squared minus A squared. Therefore, that is 49 minus 9. B squared is equal to 40. And that B is equal to plus minus square root of 40. And approximately, so let us try to say that this is transverse axis x. Therefore, our equation would be x minus h quantity squared over a squared minus y minus k quantity squared over b squared is equal to 1. So this will be our equation. Center x minus 2 quantity squared over 9 minus y minus k, which is 0, quantity squared over b squared, which is 40, is equal to 1. Simplifying, we'll be having x minus 2 quantity squared over 9 minus y squared over 40 is equal to 1. And this is now the equation of the hyperbola with center at 2, 0, one endpoint of the foci negative 5, 0, one endpoint of the vertices at 5, 0. So for us to determine the equation of the asymptote, since this is transverse axis x tax, the equation would be y is equal to plus minus b over a times the quantity x minus h plus k. And we'll be having y is equal to plus minus square root of 40 over 3 times x minus 2 plus k. Our k is 0. So this will now be the equation of the asymptotes of the hyperbola. So we will not anymore graph the hyperbola since we are only asked to determine the standard equation of the hyperbola. Let's have another given. So let's have another condition, and we're asked to determine the standard equation of the hyperbola. So what if we're now given different situations, different conditions? What if we're given different points, just like this one? So for this problem, we are given the one endpoint of the vertices as -4, -5, and the other one is -4, +9. And the endpoints of the foci, F1, that is -4, 2 minus square root of 65. So that is our given F1. We're given the vertices and F1. So if we are given this one, we could say that in the middle of the endpoints of the vertices, there is the center. Okay, so the center should be located at -4 because the average of the x and y coordinates of the vertices should be the center. And that is -4, 2. The center is located at -4 and 2. So V1 and V2 is -4, -5, and -4, +9. So from the center going to V1, that is A. And since we're not changing the value of x, we'll be getting the value of A through the y coordinate. And that is 7. Okay, so from the center, -4, 2, going to the vertices -4, -5, or -4, 9, the distance is 7, and that is +7. Therefore, A is equal to 7, A squared is equal to 49.
F1. So, yung binigay sa ating F1, that F1 is -4, 2 minus square root of 65. Therefore, si F2 is located at -4, 2 plus square root of 65. So, what is the formula ba for F1 and F2? The formula for F is, this is age K plus minus C. Therefore, this is the value of C. We all know that C is equal to the square root of 65, and that C squared is equal to 65. So, ganun lang siya. Tandaan nyo, kapag binigyan ka ng isang focus with this form, yung kapartner niya, same din ng numbers na gagamitin, pero plus na siya ngayon. So, makikita mo na agad that this is the value of C. So, if that is the case, how do we get B squared? That is now equal to C squared minus A squared. 65 minus 49. So, what is 65 minus 49? So, that is 16. So, B squared is 16. B is plus minus 4. So, is it tax or is it tie? Ano ba talaga siya? Tax ba siya or tie? Look at the vertex and look at the foci. Ano ba yung binago? Y. Therefore, this is transverse axis vertical. So, ano yung equation for transverse axis vertical? For transverse axis vertical, our formula would be y minus k quantity squared over a squared minus x minus h quantity squared over b squared is equal to 1. So, using this equation, we will now be having y minus 2 quantity squared over 49 minus x plus 4 quantity squared over 16 is equal to y. Where is the asymptote? Y now is equal to, dahil tie yan, plus minus a over b x plus 4 and then minus, what is our k? So, plus 2. So, that is now the asymptote. A over b, or this becomes y is equal to plus minus. What is our a? Our a is 7. What is our b? 4. So, plus minus 7 over 4 times the quantity x plus 4 plus 2. Questions? Questions? Again, dun sa mga kakapanood pa lang, please share this video. After my lecture, we'll be having an online game. So let's have another example using the given conditions. Questions, everyone, before the next example? Okay, ito yung last problem dun sa binigay ko sa inyong seat work. Okay. Foci are, ano daw yung mga foci natin? Foci natin would be located at -4, -3, and -4, 13. So, there is other condition. The absolute distances, the absolute difference Sir, pwede po ba gawing decimal yung may square root? Actually, pwede mo naman siyang gawing decimal kung kailangan mo nang kuhanin yung mga vertices and foci. Pero, kung gagamitin mo siya para sa asymptote, wag mo na siyang gawing decimal. Mas maganda kasi kung sa radical na lang siya. So, actually, mas convenient din kung wag mo muna din siyang gagawing decimal. Tulad nung ginawa natin kanina sa foci, mas mabilis mo makukuha yung value ng C. Okay, so this is the next problem. So the foci is located at -4, -3, and -4, 13. So that is, Sir Cash daw po ba yung premyo, sabi ni Jasper? Secret. Feeling close na naman kayo ah. Okay, so the foci is located at -4, -3, and -4, 13. So F1 is -4, -3, while F2 is -4, 13. Okay, we could get now the center. So asan daw yung center? So the center would be at -4. Okay, bakit naging -4? Using the midpoint formula, -4 plus -4 is -8 divided by 2, which is -4. So the midpoint for y is -3 plus 13 divided by 2, which is 5. So this is the center, -4 and +5. So that will be our center, -4 and +5. At alam natin na mula sa F1 going to the center, that is C. At mula sa F2 going to the center, that is also C. Okay. So, what is the value of C? Okay. Ano ba yung value ng C? 13 minus 5. So, that is 8. -3 minus 5, that is -8. Get the absolute value. Also 8. Kung may C na tayo, which is 8, therefore C squared is equal to 8 times 8, which is 64. Okay. So, saan naman natin ngayon kukuhanin si A, si B, or si C? There is another condition, and it says that the absolute value of the difference of the distances of any point from the foci is 14. Again, the second condition is that the absolute value of the difference of the distances of any point from the foci is 14. Therefore, 14 is equal to 2a. Tama ba? This is the definition of the hyperbola. The absolute difference from any point, the distances from any point from the foci is equal to a constant, and that constant is 2a. 14 is equal to 2a, therefore a is equal to 14 over 2, and a should be equal to 7. Okay. If a is equal to 7, a squared is 49. And what is b squared? B squared is c squared minus a squared. So that is 64 minus 49. Therefore, b squared is 64 minus 49 is 15. And that b is equal to plus minus. So that is square root of 15. So that is plus minus, most likely, that is 3.87. Okay. Tax or tie. So, hanapin natin kung tax or tie. Paano natin malalaman ngayon kung tax or tie siya? So, ano ba'y binago natin? Y. Therefore, tie. Ano yung formula for tie? Y minus k quantity squared over a squared minus x minus h quantity squared over b squared is equal to 1. So, this is now y minus 5 quantity squared over 49 minus x minus what is our age plus 4 quantity squared over 15 is equal to 1. Dahil tie yan, the formula that we will be using for the asymptote is y is equal to plus minus a over bx minus h plus k. Therefore, y is equal to plus minus our a is 7 over square root of 15 x plus 4. What is our k? Our k is plus 5. So this is the equation of the asymptote. So if that is the equation of the asymptote, our auxiliary rectangle would be 2a by 2b. So 2 times 7 by 2 times square root of 15. So this is now 14 by 2 square root of 15. Questions? Questions? The vertices are located at negative 2 and 8 and 8, 8. A focus is 12 and 8. What is the equation of the hyperbola? So, the first person na mag-comment ng tamang sagot will be getting a special prize from me. What is the equation of the hyperbola? The correct answer would be x minus 3 quantity squared over 25 minus y minus 8 quantity squared over 56 is equal to 1. Okay, so Mr. Erwin Villar got the correct answer. So, pakitandaan, oh, sayang Neil, tama ka sana. Okay. So, paano ba nakuha yon? So, dun sa mga hindi nakakuha, actually, ganito lang siya. So, we're asked to find the equation of the hyperbola. So, if this is the case, we are given the vertices. So, the vertices, V1 and V2, are located at negative 2 and 8, and 8, and 8. Where is the center? Therefore, the center should be located at negative 2 plus 8 is 6 divided by 2, which is 3. 8 plus 8 is 16 divided by 2, 8. Therefore, the center is located at 3 and 8. So, major horizontal, tax or tie? Ano ba'y binago? X. Therefore, this is tax. Ang formula na gagamitin natin kapag tax is x minus h quantity squared over a squared minus y minus k quantity squared over b squared is equal to 1. So, this will be our equation. So, if that is our equation, meron na ba tayong A and B? Wala pa. So, but we all know that from the center going to the vertex, that would be A. So, 8 minus 3 is now 5. If A is equal to 5, therefore, A squared would be 25. Okay. Pero binigyan pa tayo ng focus. So, sinabi sa atin that F1 is 12 and 8. Okay. 12 minus 3, from the center going to the focus, that is C. So, 12 minus 3 is 9. Okay. If C is equal to 9, C squared is equal to 81. Okay, how do we get B squared? B squared is equal to C squared minus A squared. C squared is 81. And A squared is 25. Therefore, 81 minus 25, that is 56. And that is our b squared. Substituting this into our equation, we will be having x minus 3 quantity squared over 25 minus y minus 8 quantity squared over 56 is equal to 1. So, congrats, Erwin. You got the answer correctly. So, let's have another question. Let's have another question. Me. Okay, so if this is the question, what is the equation of the asymptotes? Okay, next question. What will be the equation of the asymptotes? What is the equation of the asymptote? Ano ba siya? Tax or tie? So again, that is tax. Therefore, if that is tax, y is equal to plus minus b over ax minus h plus k. Therefore, y is equal to plus minus. What is our b? What is our a? So, what is our b? What is our a? Our b is square root of 56 over what is our a? Our a is 5 times x minus 3 plus 8. So, congrats Neil, you got the asymptotes correctly.
For the next problem, the center is located at negative 6, 9. One point of the vertices located at negative 6, 15. And the conjugate axis has a length 12. So, we're asked to find the standard equation of the hyperbola given these conditions.
At alam natin na mula sa center papunta kay vertex, that is A. Okay. So, dun tayo sa hindi magkamuka. 9 minus 15 is what? That is negative 6. Get the absolute value, which is 6. Therefore, if A is equal to 6, A squared is equal to 36. Conjugate axis of length 12. Alam natin that the conjugate axis is 2b. And that 2b is equal to 12. And b is equal to 12 over 2. And that is 6. So, b now is equal to 6. Therefore, b squared is equal to 36. Okay. Tax or tie? So, is it tax or is it tie? Anong binago natin? Y. Therefore, it is tie. So, if this is the case, So if this is the case, our formula would be y minus k quantity squared over a squared minus x minus h quantity squared over b squared is equal to 1. Substituting the values in the equation, we will be having y, what is our k? Y minus 9 quantity squared over 36 minus x minus h. What is our h? So that is plus 6 quantity squared over, what is our b squared? 36 is equal to 1. So this is the equation. So this is the correct answer. So nilito ko lang, answer would be y is equal to, tie siya. So that is plus minus a over b x minus h plus k. Therefore, y is equal to plus minus 36 over 36 is 1. So plus minus x plus 6 plus 9. So this is the correct equation for the asymptote. So here is the given. Y is equal to 4 thirds x plus 1 third, and y is equal to negative 4 thirds x plus 41 over 3. And the vertex is located at negative 1 and 7. Where is the center? So if you are given asymptotes, so this is y is equal to 4 thirds x plus 1 third, and y is equal to negative 4 thirds x plus 41 over 3. So this is equation number 1 and this is equation number 2. So if you are given two asymptotes, ganito lang yung gagawin mo. Okay, ano yung napansin mo? Ano yung gusto mong i-eliminate? For me, ang gusto kong eliminate si x na lang. Bakit? Pareho siyang 4 thirds and 4 thirds. Pero yung isa, negative 4 thirds. So kung ganyan yung binigay sa'yo, add mo lang pareho yung equation. So y plus y will be 2y. 4 thirds x plus negative 4 thirds x would cancel out. 1 third plus 41 over 3. Pareho siya ng denominator. Add the numerator. 1 over 41. 1 plus 41 is equal to 42 over 3. Okay, and what is 42 divided by 3? 42 divided by 3 is 14. Therefore, 2y is equal to 14 and y now is equal to 7. Okay. Ibig sabihin, yung center natin, located na siya sa y-coordinate niya ay 7. Hanapin na lang natin si x. Paano hanapin si x? Okay, nahanap natin y is equal to 7. Y is equal to 4 thirds x plus 1 third. This is equation number 1. Lagay natin si 7. Therefore, 7 is equal to 4 thirds x plus 1 third. So, lilipat ko si 1 third sa kabila. 7 minus 1 third is equal to 4 thirds x. Okay. Over 3. So, 3 times 7. 7 times 3 is 21 minus 1, which is 20, is now equal to 4 over 3x. Pwede kong cancelin si 3. Okay, therefore, 20 over 4 is equal to x. And what is 20 divided by 4? Okay, so 20 divided by 4 now is equal to 5. Okay, question. So, the center now is located at 5 and 7. So, okay, thank you for watching. Good night, everyone. So, that ends my live session for tonight. So, good night, guys.